Natalie Winters was folding laundry when her phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. She ignored it at first, focused on matching socks in the sunny bedroom of her Cambridge townhouse. The third call came from her sister, and Natalie's stomach tightened with instinct. "Don't read it," Rebecca said immediately. "Promise me you won't look." "What are you talking about?" "The Boston Herald. Derek's on the cover. Finance section." Rebecca's voice cracked. "Nat, just promise me you won't read it alone." But Natalie was already opening her laptop, still holding a pair of Derek's dress socks. The ones she'd ironed every Sunday for 15 years. The face of success. The headline gleamed, "Investment Genius Derek Winters, the man who predicted the market crash." Her ex-husband's face smiled from the screen, that practiced, charming smile she knew so well. He wore the navy suit she'd helped him pick out for their anniversary 3 years ago, back when she still believed they were partners. She scrolled past the praise for his financial instincts, his innovative risk models, his uncanny ability to see patterns others miss. Her hands trembled slightly. She had written those risk models. Well, the first version anyway, back when she was still teaching economic theory at Boston College. Then she found the section about their divorce. "Marriage wasn't for me," Derek explained to the reporter with apparent candidness. "I need a partner who understands the velocity of high finance. My ex-wife Natalie is a sweet woman, but let's be honest, she's just a housewife. She never really understood ambition or what it takes to compete at this level." Natalie stopped breathing. She was content to stay home, bake cookies, that sort of thing, Derek continued. "I respect that some people want simple lives, but I need someone who can match my drive." Natalie never brought anything substantial to the table. She's ordinary. Very ordinary. The weight of erasure. The socks fell from Natalie's hands. Ordinary. Housewife. Never brought anything substantial. She stared at her reflection in the darkened laptop screen. When had she become invisible? She tried to remember the last time someone had called her Dr. Winters. It had been 15 years, the day she defended her dissertation on behavioral economics before putting her career on hold to support Derek's rising star. The hold had never ended. She'd been the one to introduce Derek to quantitative analysis methods he'd never encountered in his basic MBA program. She'd been the one editing his presentations at midnight, catching errors in his logic, strengthening his arguments with academic research he didn't have time to read. When his father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, she'd been the one managing the medical decisions while Derek closed deals. She'd hosted dinners for his partners, memorizing their wives' names and children's achievements. She'd turned down a tenure-track position at Harvard because Derek's career was at a critical juncture. She'd written the core algorithm for his breakthrough market prediction model, the one that had made him a legend, and never asked for credit because, "It's our success, not mine." But in his words, she had never brought anything substantial to the table. The call to action. Natalie's phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Dr. Winters?" The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. "This is James Chen, from the Blackwell Foundation. I apologize for calling your personal number, but we've been trying to reach you through your old university contacts." "I'm not Dr. Winters anymore," Natalie said automatically. She stopped herself. "Just what? Just a housewife? Just ordinary?" "We've been reviewing your published work on behavioral economics and educational access," James continued. "Your paper on socio-economic barriers in higher education is still cited regularly. Mr. Blackwell specifically requested that I find you. He's launching a new initiative and believes your expertise would be invaluable. I haven't worked in academia in 15 years. Mr. Blackwell is aware. He said, and I quote, 'Some of the best minds are the ones the world has overlooked.' Are you available to meet with him this Thursday?" There's a charity auction at the Museum of Fine Arts. He'd like to speak with you there. Natalie looked at Derek's face on her screen. At the word ordinary in print. At the 15 years of her life reduced to just a housewife. Yes, she said. I'll be there. Preparing for battle. After hanging up, Natalie sat in silence. Then she walked to her closet and pulled out a box from the top shelf. Inside were her old academic journals, her published papers, letters of recommendation from professors who'd called her brilliant and groundbreaking. There was a photo of her accepting an award for her dissertation, her face bright with ambition and hope. She barely recognized that woman. Natalie opened her laptop again and searched for Oliver Blackwell. What she found made her breath catch. Blackwell Technologies had revolutionized educational software, making college-level courses accessible to millions. But Oliver Blackwell himself was notoriously private, no social media presence, rare interviews, and a reputation for being both generous and ruthless. There was one recent article that made her pulse quicken: Blackwell Technologies resists hostile takeover attempt by Winters Capital Group. Derek's firm. Derek was trying to acquire Blackwell's company. Natalie's mind began working in ways it hadn't in years, seeing patterns and connections. This wasn't just a job offer. This was something else. But what? She pulled out the black dress she'd bought for herself after the divorce, the one Derek had never seen. She made an appointment at a salon she'd passed 100 times but never entered. And she dug out her dissertation from the bottom of the box. The decision. You're going? Rebecca asked when Natalie called her back. I'm going. What if it's connected to Derek somehow? What if it's some kind of trap? Natalie looked at the Herald article still open on her screen. At the word ordinary that had tried to define her entire existence. Then I'll spring it, she said. I'm done being invisible. She spent the next 3 days reading everything she could find about Oliver Blackwell and his foundation. She reread her own academic work, surprised by how sharp it still was, how relevant. She'd been ordinary because she'd made herself small enough to fit into Derek's shadow. That was ending now. Thursday morning, as she prepared for the auction, Natalie caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't the invisible housewife Derek had described. She was Dr. Natalie Winters, and she had been extraordinary all along. She just needed to remember how to show it. The Museum of Fine Arts glittered with Boston's elite. Natalie walked through the entrance in her black dress, her hair styled in a way that made her feel like herself again, sophisticated, confident, alive. She'd forgotten what it felt like to dress for herself rather than to fade into the background of Derek's world. The auction room buzzed with conversation and the clink of champagne glasses. Natalie recognized several faces from Derek's business dinners, but tonight she wasn't the dutiful wife serving appetizers. Tonight, she was here for herself. Dr. Winters? She turned to find a man in his mid-40s approaching. He wasn't wearing the typical wealthy peacock uniform of designer labels and flash. Instead, he wore a simple charcoal suit that probably cost more than a car but didn't advertise it. His dark hair had threads of silver at the temples, and his eyes, intelligent, warm brown eyes, studied her with genuine interest. Mr. Blackwell, she said, extending her hand. Oliver, please. His handshake was firm. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Your assistant was very persuasive. A small smile touched his lips. James is efficient. But I should be honest with you from the start, Dr. Winters. I didn't just invite you here to discuss the foundation. The truth revealed. Oliver gestured toward a quieter corner of the room, away from the crowd. They stood near a painting, a Renaissance portrait of a woman whose eyes seemed to follow them. I've been following your ex-husband's career with great interest, Oliver said carefully. Specifically, his attempt to acquire my company through what can only be described as predatory means. Natalie's stomach tightened. I don't know anything about his current business dealings. We've been divorced for 8 months. I know. I also know that his breakthrough market prediction model, the one that made him famous, bears a striking resemblance to research published by Natalie Winters in the Journal of Economic Behavior 13 years ago. The blood drained from Natalie's face. She'd never connected those dots publicly. Derek had promised to credit her work, then claimed it was collaborative, and that putting her name on it would seem like nepotism. How did you? I read, Oliver said simply. I read everything. When Winters Capital started their hostile takeover attempt, I researched Derek thoroughly. And I found you. Or rather, I found the ghost of you, brilliant work that suddenly stopped, a promising career that vanished. He paused. Then I read this morning's Herald article. Natalie felt her cheeks burn. You must think I'm pathetic. I think you're extraordinary, Oliver said quietly. And I think your ex-husband is a thief and a fool. Before Natalie could respond, Oliver continued. I started the Blackwell Foundation because I believe education should be accessible to everyone, regardless of economic background. Your research on socio-economic barriers in higher education is exactly the framework I need. I want to hire you as the Foundation's chief cultural advisor. Full salary, full credit, full autonomy. Natalie stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a platform. A voice. A chance to do the work you should have been doing all along. Oliver's expression grew more serious. I'm also offering you something else, the truth about Derek's business practices. My research team has uncovered evidence that he's been plagiarizing academic research for years, passing it off as his own genius. Your work wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last. The room seemed to tilt. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because, Oliver hesitated, something vulnerable crossing his face. Because I believe in giving people the weapons they need to fight back. You don't have to do anything with this information. But you should have it. He handed her a slim folder. Everything's in there. Documented, verified, ready for legal review if you choose. The confrontation. Well. Natalie. They both turned. Derek stood 3 feet away, his face a careful mask of surprise that didn't reach his eyes. He looked between Natalie and Oliver, and something dangerous flickered in his expression. Derek, Natalie said evenly. I didn't expect to see you here. These events aren't usually your scene. His smile was condescending. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you two met? Oliver Blackwell, this is my ex-wife, Natalie. She's Dr. Natalie Winters, Oliver interrupted smoothly. One of the brightest economic minds of her generation. We're discussing her position with my foundation. Derek's smile froze. Position? Chief Cultural Advisor, Natalie said, finding her voice. I start next month. She watched Derek's face process this information. Watched him calculate what it meant that she was working for his business rival. Watched him realize that she wasn't invisible anymore. Natalie, can we speak privately? Derek's voice had an edge now. No, she said simply. We have nothing to discuss. I think we do. You're making a mistake aligning yourself with someone who values my work. Natalie felt years of suppressed anger rising. With someone who actually recognizes my contributions? Unlike someone who called me just a housewife in a newspaper interview? Derek's face flushed. That was taken out of context. Really? Which part? The part where you said I never understood ambition? Or the part where you called me ordinary? Natalie's voice remained calm, but it cut like a blade. I read the whole article, Derek. Every word. The realization. People were starting to stare. Derek lowered his voice. You're upset. I understand. But you don't know what you're getting into with Blackwell. His company is failing. This is a desperate move. My company is hardly failing, Oliver said mildly. Though I appreciate your concern for your ex-wife's career choices. Now, if you'll excuse us, we were in the middle of a conversation. Derek looked between them again, and Natalie saw something she'd never seen in his face before: uncertainty. Fear, even. Natalie, he said, his tone shifting to the manipulative sweetness he'd used during their marriage. Let's get coffee tomorrow. Talk about this reasonably. You know I care about you. No, Natalie said. You care about what I might tell Oliver about your business practices. You care that I might finally speak up about whose research really powers your genius models. But you don't care about me. You never did. She turned back to Oliver. I accept your offer. When do I start? The turning point. Oliver's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. Monday, if that works for you. I'll have James send over the contract details. As Derek stood frozen, clearly struggling to process this turn of events, a woman in a red dress approached him. Derek, darling, there you are. The bidding is about to start. Derek's new girlfriend. Young, decorative, exactly the type of woman he'd apparently wanted instead of Natalie. You should go, Natalie said to Derek. Wouldn't want to miss your chance to win something. She watched him leave, his shoulders tight with barely controlled anger. For the first time in 15 years, she felt free. Thank you, she said to Oliver. For what? For seeing me. Oliver's expression softened. You were always there, Dr. Winters. Some of us just had to look a little harder to find you past the shadow you were standing in. They spent the rest of the evening discussing the foundation, education reform, and Natalie's vision for accessible learning. Oliver listened to her ideas with the kind of attention Derek had never given anything she said. He challenged her thoughts, asked intelligent questions, and treated her like the expert she was. At the end of the night, as Natalie prepared to leave, Oliver stopped her. I should tell you something else, he said. When I found your research, when I read your work, I wasn't just impressed professionally. I was captivated. By your mind, your insights, the way you see patterns in human behavior that others miss. He paused. I wanted to meet you long before Derek's firm came after my company. The timing is complicated, I know. But I wanted you to know, this isn't just business for me. Natalie felt her heart skip. What is it, then? I don't know yet, Oliver admitted. But I'd like to find out. If you're interested. She looked at this man who had given her back her voice, her work, her identity. I'm interested, she said. As Natalie left the museum that night, she passed a newsstand. Derek's face still smiled from the Herald's finance section. But tomorrow, she thought, there would be other stories. Better stories. Stories where she wasn't invisible anymore. 3 months later, Natalie sat in her new office at the Blackwell Foundation headquarters, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. Her desk held her dissertation, her published papers, and the new research she'd been developing. The nameplate read, Dr. Natalie Winters, Chief Cultural Advisor. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be busy with purpose rather than servitude. Her days were filled with strategy meetings, research development, and collaborations with universities worldwide. The Foundation's new scholarship program, based entirely on her economic access models, was set to launch in 6 weeks. Oliver knocked on her open door. Ready for the board meeting? Ready to terrify your investors with actual data? Natalie smiled. Always. Their working relationship had deepened into something neither of them had expected. Long dinners discussing foundation strategy turned into longer conversations about everything else: books, music, the weight of ambition, the cost of success. Oliver treated her mind like treasure, and slowly, Natalie was learning to treasure it herself. Derek's desperation. That afternoon, Derek showed up at the foundation's lobby. Security called Natalie, and against her better judgment, she agreed to see him in the building's cafe. He looked different, tired, edges showing in his usually perfect appearance. "I need to talk to you about Oliver." "No," Natalie said. "You need to talk to me about my research that you've been using without credit for 13 years. Derek's face paled. "Natalie, listen. I found the others," she continued calmly. "Dr. Patricia Osman's work on market volatility that you presented as yours in 2019. Professor James Liu's algorithmic trading research that became your revolutionary strategy in 2021. You've built your entire reputation on stolen academic work. It wasn't stolen. It was publicly available research. I just applied it. Without attribution. Without credit. You're a plagiarist, Derek." Natalie felt calm, clinical. "And your acquisition attempt on Blackwell Technologies? It's failing because Oliver's legal team found all of it. Every paper, every borrowed idea, every lie." Derek leaned forward desperately. "You gave that to him. You betrayed me. I documented the truth. That's not betrayal, that's accountability." The final confrontation. Derek's expression hardened. "You think you're so smart now? Oliver Blackwell is using you to get to me. Once my firm backs off, he'll drop you. You're just a weapon to him." For a moment, just a moment, the old doubt flickered. Then Natalie thought about the way Oliver listened when she spoke, the way he'd spent 3 hours last week discussing her ideas about educational equity, the way he looked at her like she was extraordinary. "Even if that were true," Natalie said, "I'd still be more valued there than I ever was with you." "I made you," Derek hissed. "Without me, you'd still be some boring professor no one's heard of." "You erased me," Natalie corrected. "You took my work, my ideas, my career, and you called it yours. Then you called me ordinary." She stood. "We're done here, Derek. Your firm will receive the plagiarism documentation next week. What you do with it is your choice. You'll regret this." "The only thing I regret," Natalie said, "is not doing it sooner." The engagement. 2 months later, Oliver took Natalie to the museum where they'd first really met. They stood before the same Renaissance portrait, the woman whose eyes seemed to know all secrets. "I have something to tell you," Oliver said. Derek's firm dropped the acquisition attempt. The plagiarism evidence was enough to trigger an ethics investigation. "He's finished." Natalie felt no triumph, only relief. "Good. There's something else." Oliver took her hand. "These past 5 months working with you, getting to know you, Natalie, you're the most remarkable person I've ever met. Your mind, your passion, your courage to rebuild yourself after everything you lost." "I didn't lose it," Natalie said softly. "I gave it away. But I took it back." "You did." Oliver pulled out a small velvet box. "I know this is complicated. I know we started in unusual circumstances. But I don't want this to be about business or revenge or proving anything to anyone. I want this to be about us." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Dr. Natalie Winters, will you marry me?" Natalie looked at the ring, then at Oliver's hopeful face. She thought about Derek's proposal 15 years ago, rushed, convenient, a step toward building his perfect life. This felt different. This felt like partnership. "Yes," she said. "But I need to finish something first." "What's that?" "My doctorate was in economics. But I never published my book, the one about women's invisible labor in high-achieving households. I'm going to write it now. With proper research, real data, and my own name on it." She smiled. "I'll marry you, Oliver Blackwell. But first, I'm marrying myself back together." Oliver's expression filled with understanding and love. Then I'll wait. Take all the time you need. Epilogue. 6 months later, Derek's breakfast was interrupted by the Morning Herald. The headline read, Dr. Natalie Winters' groundbreaking book exposes economic impact of unpaid domestic labor, Harvard offers tenured position. Below it, a smaller article, tech philanthropist Oliver Blackwell announces engagement to economic researcher Dr. Natalie Winters. Derek stared at the photo of Natalie, confident, radiant, wearing the ring on her finger and holding her published book. The woman in the photo bore no resemblance to the invisible wife he'd discarded. His phone rang. His lawyer. Derek, we need to talk about the ethics investigation. Derek didn't answer. He kept staring at Natalie's photo, finally understanding what he'd lost. Not just a wife. Not just a housewife. But an extraordinary mind, a true partner, and a woman who had been remarkable all along. He'd called her ordinary. History, it seemed, would remember differently.